How does unity move toward multiplicity? That is the question for today, and we'll be getting to the answer just after a little bit here. Welcome to my channel. I'm Thomas, and I do videos on educational subjects. A lot of the subjects that you took in school, but kind of different takes on all of those different subjects. Kind of more sacred takes, where we're trying to drill down to the quantum level of all these things and figure out what they are basically. We're not trying to really apply these things to build a better bomb or make a bunch of money, but instead we're trying to really understand these subjects in their at their kind of most abstract level, the most basic fundamental level. Boil it down to the quantum. Okay. Now, in order to really have a foundation to understand a lot of these subjects, I use Tree of Life. And so the Tree of Life is an ancient diagram, goes back at least as far to ancient Egypt. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later also. But the Tree of Life is really has been called a mystical filing cabinet and also an ancient computer. It's a diagram that you use to kind of calibrate your consciousness. It's a map that you use to figure out where you are, where you're coming from. And this is what it looks like. You also may know this same structure as the Hebrew Kabbalah. It is the same diagram. This is a very different interpretation. And, the Hebrew Kabbalah has some very nefarious connotations. Most people consider it to be of the devil. And while I don't really believe in that, I believe that it is being used for evil a lot by some people who have evil intentions and are using it to attempt to brainwash you and to control your mind and thereby control your actions. But it is a piece of technology, just like anything else, can be used for good or for evil. And I think that if we learn how to use it, we can learn how to employ it for good, and we can use it to defend ourselves from those evil people who are using it against us. So, I think that as long as you step into it with an intention of using it for good, for non-violent purposes, for non-wasteful purposes, then you'll be able to use it to benefit people. And so that's what we're trying to do here. Okay, so now you can see that the tree has 10 different circles on it. It also has this thing here, the abyss, and then this thing here, the 0 above the tree. Now the numbers themselves, the 10 circles are numbered. Let's start at the top this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And in the legend of the tree, basically the universe is created at 1, and the universe the creation of the universe emanates downward, and with each new sphere it becomes more kind of contaminated with the universe and less pure as it was up here. And then we end up with the 10, and the 10 is kind of where life takes place, and then life evolves back up the tree. And it's kind of like the purpose of the universe, is to evolve back to the one. So that's the process that we're in right now. And so then we start here at 10. This is what we have to work with. And then gradually on our spiritual evolution, we're attempting to like access and open, the use of all of these faculties on the way, on the way back. Okay, so when we start with 10, we start with, okay, and so the different 12 different categories on the tree are our faculties of consciousness, or you might call them our abilities of consciousness, or our modes of consciousness, aspects of our consciousness. And again, at our birth, we start with the 10 open. The 10 is our survival, our instinct. This is our law of the jungle, kill or be killed, the state of nature, our sense of being able to stay alive. And this also has to do with like the body in general, especially like the lusts and the defilements of the body that are kind of implicit. If you have any kind of an animal, including a human, you start feeding them all kinds of feeding them, McDonald's French fries and cheeseburgers, they will become addicted to them and they'll eventually become really fat, regardless of whether it's a human or an animal. So we have to kind of, these are the defilements of the body take away from our life force. And so that's why it's located here in the 10th sphere, because the 10th sphere is really about the propagation of our life force. Okay, then the 9th sphere is what we begin to open up in the first years of our life. And so this is our heightened receptivity. It's what you call mediumistic trance. It's a trance state where we're focused on something outward to us. And the medium in general is our parents or whoever is raising us. So this is the domestic sphere. This is the first few years of our lives where we're soaking everything up like a sponge in our in our baby crib or wherever, and we're constantly experimenting. We watch other people do things and then we try to do it ourselves. We try to imitate and we practice it over and over again, and we usually fail and over again, but eventually maybe we'll get it. That's just like learning how to walk, learning how to ride a bike, or any of those things. We have to copy and then memorize, and then eventually we'll be able to learn how to imitate. Okay, the 8th sphere is kind of similar, but it's on the public level instead of the private, the domestic level. On the public level, this is what you get out in the schools and the churches. You get it from the establishment and from the institutions, from the experts. This is the expert opinion, and this is the conventional wisdom, and this is what they say. Everybody knows that. This is the level of, and the media, and they're all telling you what you're supposed to believe, how you're supposed to, handle it. And unfortunately, the 8th sphere is a trickster also. And so what they're telling you is what they want you to know, but it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the truth. So they're telling you certain things, and you end up getting into a cognitive dissonance type of situation where the things that you actually experience come in conflict with the things that they actually tell you that you're supposed to believe. The things they tell you you're supposed to believe do not necessarily harmonize with your own experience. And so you end up having to contort yourself to fit into this A-sphere. And that's really what's called rationalization. So the A-sphere is mainly about our belief systems and our rational faculties. When the rational faculties, they work. Our rational faculty works, but it's very, very limited, and it suffers from a number of different fallacies, including rationalization, circular reasoning, and also just faulty input. If you don't have the right input, then you can logic and reason all day long, and you still won't get to the right answer. So logic and reason is just very, very limited, and it proves to be kind of a detriment when we're being fed all kinds of faulty input by the powers that be. And the powers that be are feeding this stuff to us not because it's true, but because it's convenient for them. They want us to believe this for a certain reason. Okay, then the seventh sphere is for people where the eighth sphere is the real world, the seventh sphere is the imaginary world, and the seventh sphere is for people who kind of smelled a rat at the eighth sphere, where they're like, that what you're teaching us is not in harmony with what I've experienced. So they come over here and they use their imagination, also their inspiration, their intuition, their creative spark, their pleasure principle to harmonize things, to put them into harmonious arrangements. They use all those faculties here at the seventh sphere to come up with alternatives for the eighth sphere. They're trying to improve upon what the eighth sphere is bringing to the table. And this is also congregative thinking, kind of like the harmonious, where the eighth sphere is about separating everything out into categories. The seventh sphere is about putting them back together into harmonious groupings. The seventh sphere is also our 1% impetus, or the inspiration that we need to climb further up the tree. So as we move to the sixth sphere, the sixth sphere is our free will faculty, our ability to pay attention and our ability to make decisions. And unfortunately, we find ourselves here at the at the sixth sphere, but we find ourselves paying attention to mainly the 8th, 9th, and 10th spheres. So our attention, which is a vector, which has a direction, our attention is focused on the 8th, 9th, and 10th spheres, because this is our comfort zone. This is where we normally operate. We've normally operated here all our lives. And so, we focus our 8th sphere, the 7th sphere too, to a limited degree. We focus our attention down here. And so we need to use the other aspect of free will, which is our ability to make decisions. And our first decision here at the sixth sphere needs to be to turn around our attention. So we avert our attention from this area here and focus our attention up the tree toward our spiritual evolution. And this is a daunting task because you have to really overcome your fears, because you're staring into the unknown here. Because most of these aspects, these higher aspects within us, are either completely closed or only slightly opened in us, because we just have been spending our whole life down here. And so these are rarefied aspects of our consciousness that we haven't really we don't really know anything about them at this point. And so to turn ourselves around and to try to focus on them and learn more about them is a daunting task, because anytime that you're going into the unknown is a scary prospect. But if we start here at the sixth sphere, we start to focus our attention on the fifth sphere, we can make good headway, because the fifth sphere is our sense of justice. And it's similar to the eighth sphere. It's on the same side as the eighth sphere. It's a left brain thing. and it is you know, where the A sphere is about dividing things out into separate categories, the fifth sphere is the same thing, but it's dividing them out according to their internal characteristics as opposed to their surface characteristics. So this is analysis. We're separating things out into their form, function, and interrelationship, as opposed to their you know, kind of surface characteristics, which I suppose maybe would be form. But so their function in their interrelationships. And that's our sense of justice, which is karma. Karma is our, you know, what comes around goes around. As you sow, so shall you reap. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, Newton's third law. And so that is kind of how karma works. And it works according to waste, violence, and violation. So we get feedback on our actions. We act and we get feedback. And that feedback, if we're paying attention, we can learn from our karma how to eliminate the violence and waste from our actions. Because if we put in violence, we get back violence. We don't like to get back violence, and so we can learn to gradually, you know, put out less violence so we get back less violence. Put out less waste so we get back less waste. So this is how we pay attention to the fifth sphere, and it enlightens us about our behavior and how to behave. Now, the fourth sphere is similar to the fifth sphere. It's on the same level. Again, this is more of a right brain thing, just like the seventh sphere. It's putting things together. So where the fifth, but again, on this level, this is the level of form, function, and interrelationship, as opposed to the surface characteristics. So the fifth sphere, where that's about analysis, the fourth sphere is about synthesis. You know, synthesizing all of the various studies that you've done, all the observations that you've made, all the observations other people have made, and the investigations and the experiments and the experience of all other people, and we put them all together into a cosmology, just like a holy book or a theory of everything that purports to describe how everything works. So that is the fourth sphere, along with another synthesis, universal love, being able to love our enemies, and also universal language, being able to communicate with other people that don't even speak the same language. You know, so we have not the same verbal language. This is nonviolent communication, also nonverbal communication, body language, but also, you know, music and dance and inflection. Many other things go into the nonverbal communication, and also, you know, just universal communication. But basically they're innate, where you don't have to learn the language. You already have a sense of the language. Okay, then we move up to the abyss. The abyss is our psychic powers. This is based a lot upon, it's a magnetic sphere, but it's based on omens and synchronicities. And those are really like magnetic charges that we need to be able to act upon. But first we need to even be able to notice them. So you have to be able to notice that there's a charge in the field, and then you need to be able to act on it. So when you have a synchronicity or an occurrence that is a coincidence or a deja vu or something that sticks in your mind, you have to be able to like let it register. Don't reject it and just say, oh, wow, that was weird. But say, well, that was weird. What does that mean? You know, what is that about? And then that will lead you to a course of action. And then if you take that action, which again is difficult, just like the sixth sphere, you have to overcome your fears, because you can notice that this is happening, but in order to act upon it, you need to summon up your psychic heat The first one is psychic receptivity, and then the psychic heat is being able to act upon it. But acting upon it is a difficult task because it requires us to put ourselves out there. And so, everybody's going to see us kind of acting a fool, in this, in response to this crazy synchronicity that just happened. Okay, then the 3, 2, and 1 on the tree are our divine faculties within. The third sphere corresponds to omnipotence, all-powerful, tapped into through sound and synchronizing the sound. And then the second sphere is omniscience, all-knowing, and this has to do with wisdom and our ability to solve problems. We tap into it either through a divination oracle system, or if possible, through our own abilities to basically shut down the influence of the mind, to be able to, you have thoughts, but you don't follow up on those thoughts. You don't go chasing those thoughts. You stay focused, keep your attention focused on what is happening right now. And you find that you begin to sink further and further down into the core of the mind. And that's where the stillness is, and that's where you see an image of the creator, and seeing that image of the creator, those are the solutions to your problems. And if you can tap into that even further, and instead of just seeing the image of the creator, you actually become the image of the creator, or embody the image of the creator all the way at our deepest center, our deepest core, then this is the unifying factor, omnipresence, all knowing, all at once, eternally. And this is where at the deepest center is a singularity, and that singularity is not only you and yours, but it is everybody's. Everybody possesses the same divine spark within us, and so it is ultimately a unifying factor if we can get that quiet, so that we can get all the way to the deepest levels of the mind. And then the zero sphere above the tree is really the mystery and the nothingness of the universe. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later. But it's part of the creator, but it's not part of the universe. It's outside of the universe. It's part of the creator that the creator reserves for itself. So we humans don't have any access to that zero sphere. Okay, now, so that is the introduction to the tree of life. Now, is a slightly advanced way of learning it is to fractalize the tree, to take the whole tree and to shrink it down. You can apply the tree to everything. So the strategy here is to apply the tree to each sphere, to understand more about each sphere by applying a whole tree to it. So you put all 12 faculties of the tree onto the 10th sphere. You divide the 9th sphere up to its 12 faculties. You divide the 8th sphere into its 12 faculties, and so on. And you end up with 144 different fractal faculties, or mini faculties, which I call the stages of life, or the stages of history, but not chronological stages. They are dramatic stages. So these are the different dramas that we go through as we move through life. I put these into a list that I would be happy to share with you for free. If you click the link in the description, I'll send that out to you. Now, each day we're looking at a different one of these 144 stages of life. And today we're looking at number 135. Now, this maps out to be a zero sphere factor, and it is the second fractal of the zero sphere. Okay, so this is nothingness, and this is a mystery. And then the second sphere is omniscience, all-knowing, and it is about, telling the future. It has to do with astrology. It has to do with divination. It has to do with solving problems. So, and it also has to do with the number 2. And so the question was, how does unity move toward multiplicity? Number 135, two divine divisors. Stage number 135 is about how one makes 2 and 3 simultaneously. One is like a box. With no box, there is nothing. But once you have a box, you have both the inside of the box and the outside of the box, and the box itself as the boundary. So unity is automatically trinity. We end up with 1 and 2 inverses and their powers that multiply to 1. The powers of the golden ratio, and their inverses create this stairway to heaven. By dividing 1 harmoniously with the first 2 powers of the golden ratio of the mystery of Memphis, we end up with 1 over the golden ratio, otherwise known as phi, phi, approximately 0.618, and 1 over phi to the second power, which is approximately 0.382. Together, they add up to 1. Their inverses, 1.618 and 2.618, differ by this same 1. Their difference is the next power, 1 over phi to the third power, and their product is also 1 over phi to the third power. Their inverses add up to phi to the third power, and their inverses product is also phi to the third power. These are the second and third entities, and we use 2 and 3 to represent them on the tree. The golden ratio comes from a higher dimension. It is infinite and infinitesimal on our scales. For these same Egyptians, there is a 2x4 double square called the Agdod, which embeds phi, and it stands behind the primary bifurcations, the energy-matter polarity and the consciousness-will polarity. The Agdod stands for no things, no movement, no light, and no space-time on the energy-matter side, and consciousness has no things, no emotions, absolute darkness, and eternity on the consciousness-will side. These are the characteristics of nothingness as we see it, meaning they are not in the universe. They are infinite in their nothingness. Okay, that is the second fractal of the zero sphere, 2 divine divisors. It's about the golden ratio. We'll be doing a number of different videos on the golden ratio coming up probably in the summertime. And all I can really tell you right at this point is the golden ratio is very fantastic. I believe just this golden ratio is proof of a higher intelligence, and you know, the number itself is 1.618 or 0.618. The number goes on to infinity, but that's the close approximation, and you know, you can experiment with it yourself. It comes out of the Fibonacci sequence and also the 5-power sequence that approximates integers. And you can do a lot of things with it, and I think it's the key to life. But we'll get into that. But that's what this one is about, the second fractal of the zero sphere. Thanks for sticking around to the end today, and you can hit the like button. You can share the video and subscribe to the channel, You can click the link in the description to get a free copy of the 144 Fractal Faculties. You can also check the description if you'd like to donate to the channel through Venmo or Cash App. And I will be bringing you another video tomorrow on another of the 144 Fractal Faculties. So tune into that tomorrow. And otherwise, have a beautiful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.